Airport security, all the searches, the screenings, the cameras, the questions. It's just one more way of reducing your liberty and reminding you that they can
my
fuck
friends.
with you
How's it going?
anytime they want.
Camera got pushed over a little bit. Oh, how professional, right? You're like, why don't you edit that shit out? I could just have it just kind of come in after a really nice intro and be like, hi everybody, it's Carpo, smash that like button. You know, this is kind of a freestyle video. I had some thoughts on my mind. It's about noon here on November 19th, I guess, 2019, 11/19/19, I guess. And I looked in the news this morning. It was National Toilet Day, or International Toilet Day. Just thought I'd let you all know. We were talking about toilets because, I don't know, something came up and I was like, hey, I looked at this article. It was Toilet Day. Has nothing to do with the video, but often the subjects I bring up don't. I'm hoping I can just kind of, as I was doing some things around the house, I had these ideas in my head, and I was thinking about a video I made the other day about friends. It led me to make a video, have some thoughts about, say, family, connections, people in general. And this morning I woke up feeling inspired. I've been inspired for the last few days. You noticed I've probably made more videos if you're a regular sub. And I'm doing an audio recording of this one. I'm also going to put it on Patreon. So I try to record as many as I can to upload on there, and I put extras and sometimes just voice recordings, but it's actually easier for me to do video. So I woke up this morning, I got inspired and wrote out this 5-page manifesto of life. No, it's not a manifesto. It's about perceptions, experiences, and how we perceive the world around us. Just all this research I was doing about how we perceive flavor, how it requires smell, how it requires our vision, how even a spoon texture can make yogurt seem thicker if it's a metal spoon. Things like that. And how we're just all biased and screwed up. And the conclusion I came to, you know, of course, is if we could all just let go of our seriousness, if we could just stop being so serious for a minute. And I know a lot of folks don't think that they're too serious. They think, well, I'm pretty easygoing. Well, that led me into thinking, what's the best way to live a long, not just a long life, because that's not that important. Long lives aren't as important as happy lives. But happy lives aren't as important as good lives. Okay, and what I mean by that is a person can live a happy life by abandoning all of society with somebody they love or by themselves, and convince themselves that what they're doing makes them happy, and that's happiness to them. There's nobody that has a book on, oh, this is what makes people happy, and oh, okay, you have to have this many kids and do this much. For some people, having kids is miserable. For some people, it's ecstatic. And some people who have no kids, they become more ecstatic not having kids, but that's their justification because they never had kids. Whereas some people who had kids will say the same thing about having kids. Oh, I'm so glad I had kids, even though in the back of their mind they think, oh, I could have been single. I don't know how it would have been if I didn't. I'm using that as an extreme example of how our biases play a huge role in what we think to be true about ourselves and others. And that's what this paper I wrote was. I'm going to do it later. It's hard for me because I like to just talk on video. For that, I'll have to record the audio, then I'll have to add pictures to it, then I'll have to put in words and add all this crap. Just like, it's just a hassle. I guess if I did this for a living, I would love to edit and post videos. And maybe that's my own fault for not pushing harder to, like, get funding or go work for a paper or write articles for some, you know, media outlet or something. It's just what I love to do, is research and think. But the stuff that I am interested in is just so obscure. It's difficult to pin it down. And like right now, I'm talking about family and friends. But when I'm talking about letting go, what I mean is that if we let go of all the bullshit and we can look each other in the eye and just laugh, you can only do that sometimes when you're in the right environment with the right people. And for me, that was always at dead shows with psychedelics. That was my personal connection to people. And as I was going through my adolescence into my later 30s, all the way through there, I'd look at the people who drank alcohol. And I'd think, that's just so disgusting. How can you just go out to the bar and drink? Honestly, I built a new respect for alcohol in my 40s. Because I understand that for some people who don't do psychedelics, don't have any other connection, alcohol allows them to lower their walls just enough to talk with people. But this can go both ways. You can also just become an asshole and fight with people. gonna bring out your true nature. I hate to say it, but people who are assholes, when they drink, they become assholes. People who are, they don't become assholes. They become the fun drunks. But let's just say that each one of us has a little bit of asshole inside of us. That sounds completely wrong. We're all fucked up. Okay, I'm trying to put it that way. I try not to cuss in my videos, but fuck. I mean, what else? It's not like I get ad revenue or anything, so I figure I might as well just go all out. Oh God, I said fuck. Oh my God. Oh shit, I used God's name in vain. Oh fuck. Oh shit. No, really. I think I take myself too seriously in my videos, and a lot of you probably have this image that I'm a serious person. I like to laugh and act like a complete fool. I act like a complete dork when I'm out at like shows or at festivals, and I'm laying there by my school bus with the Dead playing and lasers and smoke, and I'm tripping, and I'm like, bleh. I'm just a human being, and I've learned to acknowledge that and embrace it. And some people take themselves so seriously that they cannot let go of that. And recently, I've actually had a couple of people, I won't go into specifics, but a couple of people I've known or who have sent me emails or whatnot have said that, as their later years went on, they realized they were taking themselves too seriously, they let it go, and now they're able to see that life is much more enjoyable when you're not just happy, because that's, to come full circle to the beginning of the video, it's not about just saying, I'm just going to choose to be happy and ignore all the negatives in the world and say, oh, you're not peaceful enough and love and light and all this. I've tried that. It doesn't work, because there are still people who will come out of the alley and beat the shit out of you for no reason and take your money. You can't beat and you can't overcome the darkness in the world. What you can do is overcome your perception of that darkness and realize that the shitty people in the world are a manifestation of our own insecurities and, the main point, our lack of taking care of one another. And now I hate to say that crime, violence, thieves, all of this is a byproduct of people not getting their share. And a person may say, well, this person needs to work to get their share. Well, think about the rich person's attitude that, well, if you just work hard, you can become a millionaire. Everybody can do it. Anyone who thinks that the world can be full of millionaires driving Lexuses and Mercedes is completely fucking, they're deluded. You have no basis for the reality that we could all live with that much money. For every rich person, it's in direct proportion to the available resources. For every person who's extremely wealthy, multi-billionaires, there's going to be millions of poor people. That's just the way it is. Not everybody can be a multi-billionaire, and if they were, then the value of the dollar would go down, and you'd be sitting there with $5 billion bills like they had in, what do I always forget? Anyhow, several, Zimbabwe, their economy collapsed, and I have a bunch of their bills I bought. It's a $5 billion bills. They had up to $100 trillion bills, I think was the largest one they had. I mean, how far do you think an economy can collapse? So the point being that, not to get off track here, is that we need to take care of each other. Money is a joke. Money is a symbol. Money is nothing more than a trade, a commodity. People have become so addicted to money, they don't treat each other with respect. And I have a strong dislike for a lot of wealth. I've made decent money in my time when I was younger, when I had a carpentry business, then my back got fucked up. Started my herb business, then I kind of lost interest. I'm still doing it, but the point being that if I wanted to become a millionaire, I guess I probably could, but I'm not willing to put in the amount of work and stepping on people that you have to really make to get there. It's funny that the people who would do the most good with the money are the people who have lived modestly and realize that you have to work hard for what you have, but also realize that, and this is where I want to make my main point. I made a video about friends, and I said, basically, am I a bad friend? And of course I know I'm not a bad friend, but what I was saying is that as a family, as I had a family, raised kids, I had more important things to do than worrying about my friends, what they're up to. However, if one of those friends had contacted me and said, dude, I really need help, I would be there in a fucking heartbeat. If you're a friend of mine and you need my help, and you really ask for my help, which I've very rarely had happen, I will be there for you. And that goes for anybody out there, even somebody who sends me a desperate email that I don't even know. And that's the main point I want to make here, is that moving into why is it just our friends and our family? Think of it this way: if my kids were dying or needed help, that's my job, right? As a parent, I would have to be there. If my wife or my mother or my brother, of course I would be there. But what if it was some distant cousin I didn't know very well? I might be there. I don't know. But I would probably be there for a really close friend before I'd be there for a cousin I didn't know, I'd never met. Blood isn't as important as it once was to people. It's who you know, but it shouldn't be. It should be everyone. Anyone who needs your help. Even a distant cousin who's desperate for your help. If he really needed my help, I would be there, or she. I can see that many of us really want to help each other, but we're so distracted by society forcing us to play the game. You know, the financial burden of, the 40 to 60 to 80-hour work weeks just to pay for your house and to feed your kids. I'm so grateful to live in Washington State. We have a good minimum wage. My wife's a waitress. We still get minimum wage, and we have one of the highest in the state. Up north in Seattle, it's even more. Totally grateful for that. If she lived in the South, down in Alabama or Tennessee or one of those places, they can still pay their waitresses $2 an hour. Some restaurants don't even pay their waitresses. They have to only get paid in tips. And the point there is that people are just being robbed and nickel and dimed from every angle by other people. How can you consciously vote in policies that are going to fuck people over? Look at the way we treat our teachers. Think about this. Teachers have to strike and fight for any sort of support. And most of us send our kids to public school. I realize it's not perfect, but there's a reason for that, because we vote against it a lot of the time. People don't want higher taxes and levies on their land. Once your kids have gone to school, often the older generation will just say, well, fuck it, I'm not voting for this. And this is why so many people become conservative later. They forget what it was like to have kids and to fight the difficulty. But the people today are even fighting more difficulties because there's more and more people. Since I was born, the population's doubled in the world. And this is where we come up with today's okay boomer generation. As the millennials have been calling out the baby boomers by saying okay boomer, which is basically the response to any bullshit that it's basically the response from Gen Z and Gen X to say the older people don't care. They're not interested in fixing the planet or helping one another. They don't seem interested in remedying the bullshit that we need to fix. And so therefore it's kind of the if you don't care, we don't care attitude. And I don't think it's necessarily productive, but I think it makes a point. I think that the point that it makes, especially, is that the baby boomer generation is actually getting very offended by this. That there have been a lot of responses. In fact, one old guy tweeted that it was similar to the N-word. It was that insulting to the old people to call them, to say okay boomer. I mean, you don't owe old people respect just because they're old, right? Well, of course that tweet was deleted, but I just find this fascinating that so many people are offended. The head of the AARP, I don't remember this lady, one lady who's a member, she's one of the head people. She tweeted something in response to the okay boomer meme that said, yeah, well, you can say okay boomer, but we're the ones with the money. Bingo. That was the whole point. The old rich motherfuckers are the ones with the money. And it's time to redistribute this wealth. It's time for us to see that it's not the money that matters, it's the resources. A lot of people have more than they need. I don't believe in hierarchy any more than I believe in maybe, yes, there could be a boss and then people who work for them. But do I believe that the boss needs a house that's 50 times or 100 times more expensive, or that they should make 1,000 times the wage of their average employee? No, I don't think anybody is worth making millions of dollars a year. Nobody's opinion is worth that much because we're all biased, we're all delusional, and yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I think people need to work together, and I'm not sitting here, I want to make this clear, I'm not just sitting here behind the camera saying, well, rich people should give up all their money and they don't really deserve it. That's not what I mean. There are a lot of wealthy people out there who do phenomenal things. But let's be honest. If you look at the numbers, the disparity between how much the wealth gap was 20 years ago or 40 years ago, it has just gone exponentially higher for the wealthy. That's why we don't say the 1% anymore. We moved it to the 0.1%, and now it's moved to the 0.01%. Let's go to the 0.001%. Some of these people own a huge, absolute, I don't need to give you the details, you all know. Billionaires have all the money in the world, and the rest of us just kind of suffer and scrape for the scraps. And that's bullshit, you know? That's what we were trying to escape when we came over to America and stole the land from other people. I'm not going to go into that one. But let's just say that the people that came here, the ones with good intentions, maybe the ones that tried to work with Native Americans, in other words, the white people that weren't complete fucking assholes, because a lot of the founding fathers were just as much of dicks as the people that they left. Humans, it's our nature to want to rule one another, but it's because a lot of people want to be ruled. It's unfortunate. It's a condition that we need to overcome. The ability that each one of us does have the power to know what we want and what we need, and we don't have to rely on other people to tell us that for ourselves. So I'm going to go now because I could ramble on for another 20 minutes about this, but I really just wanted to make a few quick points and just give my opinion on inequality, on coming together. Insulting one another, especially when the poor are fighting against the poor. You know, if you've ever struggled to pay your bills, if you've ever gone to the grocery store with a calculator to make sure you don't go over, and bought the most generic products you can to make sure that you don't spend too much on your budget, you understand where I'm coming from. If you've had a silver spoon since you were born and you've never had to fight for anything, you might feel defensive right now because I'm talking shit about rich people. But realize that I'm only talking shit about people who don't share what they have enough. Not the people who have a couple $1 million and maybe a house and then a vacation house, but the people who didn't work for their money, who have billions of dollars. And a lot of folks don't even realize that $1 billion is 1,000 times more than $1 million. Or that $1 million is even 1,000 times more than 1,000. These amounts of money, that $1 billion is 1,000,000 thousands. It's a lot of fucking money. And it's way too much money for people to have. And you can tell that, of course, now that I'm talking about money, I'm getting a little more animated about it. And it's because I honestly understand how the economy works. I have two books. The book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is an 800-page book about the Federal Reserve. It's by J. Edward Griffin, I think. It was given to people about tax law and all these things. It tells you everything about the economy. I got a lot of the way through that one. And then I have a book called Capital by Thomas Piketty, another thick book that my wife got me. It's considered like the ultimate recent book on capitalism like that. I'm fascinated with how the economy works because money equals food, right? It equals housing, shelter. I lived through the 2008 financial crisis because my wife and I bought our house that I'm living in right now. It's a small little 1,000-foot house. We bought it on a stated income in 2004 or 3 because back then you could buy a house on a stated income, meaning she was a waitress, I wasn't making shit, and we were able to buy it just saying, I make this much on tips. And they would help you get the house. In fact, we probably shouldn't have been able to get it. But we lived through all the bullshit, didn't get foreclosed on. We were able to pay our bills, fortunately. And now our house, of course, has increased in value, but a lot of the people that lost their houses, they're back to renting or they're still trying to pay off those bills. Meanwhile, there's a lot of student debt being racked up. And all of this, the financial burden for medical bills, the fact that prescription drugs that you need, like for diabetes, insulin has actually increased and skyrocketed in price. How during the opioid crisis, naloxone has skyrocketed in price, even though it's a drug that was from the 50s. Basically, everyone who can and has the ability to is trying to nickel and dime and fuck you over, so they can put more money in their shareholders' pockets who in turn make more and more billionaires. And the rest of us who are struggling see this disparity growing. And a lot of people seem to be very, very content with not doing anything at all about it. And a person may say, what can you do? Well, what am I doing? I'm talking about it. And if everybody talks about it, then we can stop kind of admiring the wealthy and realize that all wealth comes at the hands of other people, at the expense of other people's hard work. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're a billionaire with a mansion, that mansion was built by people, sure. Create a few jobs in the meantime. It's not really the point. The point is that it could do so much more good. The ultimate example for me is the Vatican. You know, people have always said, why are there people dying outside the walls of the Vatican? Today it might not be so extreme, but there are still people homeless and starving near the Vatican, living on the streets. Meanwhile, it's just loaded up with goods. Why do we need to hoard goods just because we have a church? It makes no sense. And I only bring that up because some of the most highly revered cultural traditions in our entire world are religions. We've changed architecture, we've changed our attitudes, the internet has come around, all these things have changed, but the one thing that really hasn't changed over time, and that refuses to change, is religion. And that goes for Islam, Christianity, Catholicism. They all share one thing. They refuse to budge. And because of this, they've also refused to budge on certain issues that we can see, look back through time and say, wow, this is how people thought back then. But in today's world, we should understand that sharing is caring, bro. But we've seen through the illusion that the church is infallible because of the fact that, look at the priests. Look at how many kids have come forward. Look at the Cub Scouts. And the Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts actually pride themselves as a religious organization. I was in the Cub Scouts. I didn't know at the time it was kind of a Christian-based thing, and it didn't matter to me at the time. I was young. I left because I got bored. We didn't do enough camping. But anyhow, the point being that these are religious institutions that are supposed to pride themselves on the ultimate in human values and morals, and yet they're not just have molesters and pollution and greed within the ranks, but they hoard all of their money. They want your money on their plate. They want to buy bigger stained glass windows and more gold urns. And it just shows something about humans, that we can justify it whether the money's for the shareholders or whether it's for God or Jesus, whether it's for Muhammad or whether it's blessing the Buddha statue with gold foil, which, you know, I can't leave that neutral. Or in India, where everything has to be sacred. Everybody's got their thing, and that's fine, as long as money isn't involved. Hoarding money, gurus, false gurus, prophets, priests, driving these fancy cars and flying jets. I'll tell you something, these evangelists are some of the worst people in the world. Because they're even worse than the billionaires who admit, yeah, I just like to work hard and make money, and that's what I do. These are people who claim that they're there for God, that they're there to help the people get to heaven. They're there to assist you in understanding God better. But a lot of folks don't even know that up until recent centuries, you weren't allowed to own a copy of the Bible or read it or learn to read it without punishment of death. Only the priests could read it to you. And if that doesn't tell you a lot about human nature, then I don't know what does. So those are my thoughts for this Monday. Tuesday? It's Tuesday. Yeah. Hope you all have a fantastic day. And I will, I'll get back to this subject someday, but I guess I had a lot more to say than I thought. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.